The bright lights of the medical bay reflected off the polished surfaces as Amanda Cole arranged her instruments for the third time that morning. Her hands moved quickly, trying to keep busy while her mind raced with thoughts about the upcoming meeting. As the medical liaison aboard the Starweaver, she had dealt with many unusual situations, but nothing quite like this. The ship's intercoms crackled to life. Medical Bay Team, please prepare for the arrival of the Zaxthrixie delegation. 5 minutes until docking procedures complete. Amanda took a deep breath and smoothed down her uniform. The Zaxthrixie were known across 3 star systems for their advanced medical knowledge. Their hospitals could cure diseases that humans still struggle to understand. Their doctors could perform surgeries that seemed like magic to human medical professionals. Dr. Peter Walsh walked into the medical bay, his tablet displaying the latest diplomatic protocols. "Ready for this, Cole?" he asked, his voice carrying a mix of excitement and nervousness. "As ready as I'll ever be, sir," Amanda replied, double-checking the sterilization field at the entrance. The Zaxthrixie were extremely particular about cleanliness. The medical bay doors slid open with a soft hiss. 3 tall figures stepped through the sterilization field, their iridescent scales shimming under the bright lights. The Zaxthrixie stood nearly 7 feet tall, with long, elegant necks and 4 arms each. Their eyes, large and multifaceted like those of insects, scanned the room with obvious curiosity. The tallest of the 3 stepped forward. "I am Chief Medical Researcher Vexterra," it said, its translator converting the musical clicks and whistles of its native language into English. "We are most interested in beginning our biological exchange studies." Dr. Walsh stepped forward, offering the traditional Zaxthrixie greeting. Both hands held palm up at chest level. "Welcome aboard the Starweaver. I'm Chief Medical Officer Peter Walsh, and this is our medical liaison, Amanda Cole." Amanda noticed how Vexterra's eyes lingered on the various human medical equipment, its upper arms making small gestures that its companions quickly recorded on their devices. The aliens seemed less than impressed. "Your medical facilities are quaint," Vexterra said, running one of its lower hands over a diagnostic scanner. "We look forward to helping you advance beyond these primitive tools." Amanda felt her cheeks grow warm, but kept her professional smile in place. She had been warned about the Zaxthrixie's direct nature and their tendency to see most other species as less developed. "We're very eager to learn from your expertise," she said diplomatically. "We've prepared several research stations where we can begin sharing our medical knowledge." Vexterra made a sound that the translator interpreted as a laugh. "Sharing? My dear, I don't think you understand. We are here to study your species. Your biological structure is quite unusual, even if primitive. We've never encountered beings that waste so much energy maintaining a constant internal temperature." Dr. Walsh cleared his throat. "Actually, our homeostatic systems are quite efficient." "Efficient?" Another of the Zaxthrixie interrupted, its scales shifting to a shade of deep purple. "Your species requires regular periods of unconsciousness just to maintain basic brain function. How is that efficient?" Amanda stepped between them, gesturing toward the prepared research stations. "Perhaps we could begin with some basic biological comparisons. We've prepared detailed scans of human cellular structure." The Zaxthrixie delegation moved toward the stations, all 12 of their arms carrying various scanning devices. As they began their analysis, Amanda caught Dr. Walsh's eye. He gave her a slight nod. They both knew this was just the beginning. What the Zaxthrixie didn't realize was that humans had surprised many alien species before. Their dismissive attitude wasn't anything new to human diplomatic teams. Amanda smiled to herself as she prepared the first batch of cellular samples. Soon enough, these aliens would learn what so many others had discovered. Underestimating humans was always a mistake. As the day progressed, the Zaxthrixie continued their scans and observations, making notes and occasionally making sounds of disapproval. But Amanda noticed something else too. Whenever they found something unexpected in the human biological data, their scales would shift to a bright, curious yellow. and she had started keeping count of how many times that had happened. The first contact was just the beginning. And if Amanda's observations were correct, these aliens were in for quite a few surprises. 3 days into the cultural exchange, the Zaxthrixie Medical Council gathered in the Starweaver's main conference room. Their scales flickered with shades of green and blue as they examined the preliminary test results. Amanda Cole stood near the back wall, watching as Lisa Martinez, the ship's lead biologist, presented her findings. "As you can see," Lisa said, pointing to the holographic display, "human cellular repair mechanisms show unique properties when compared to other known species." Vexterra raised all 4 hands in a gesture of dismissal. "Unique does not mean superior. Your bodies waste enormous amounts of energy fighting off minor infections. Our immune systems simply prevent such invasions in the first place." Lisa kept her voice steady, though Amanda could see her fingers tightening around her datapad. "That's actually what makes our immune system remarkable. It learns and adapts to new threats. Each infection makes it stronger." The Zaxthrixie Council members began making their clicking sounds that Amanda had learned meant they were laughing. Their scales rippled with patterns of amusement. "Remarkable," one of them said through the translator. "It's inefficient. Your species is constantly at war with its own environment. You call that remarkable?" Lisa placed her datapad on the conference table. "Then perhaps we should put it to the test." The room went quiet. Even the Zaxthrixie stopped their clicking. "If our biology is so primitive, surely you wouldn't mind a series of controlled experiments to prove it." Vexterra's scales shifted to a deep purple of interest. "What kind of experiments do you propose?" "A complete biological challenge," Lisa said. "Test our endurance, healing, adaptability, everything you've dismissed as primitive. We'll put human biology up against your standards." Amanda stepped forward. "We have volunteers ready to participate. All we need is your agreement and testing protocols." The Zaxthrixie Council members turned all their eyes toward each other, their scales flickering in rapid communication patterns. After a moment, Vexterra turned back to face the humans. "We accept this challenge," it said. "But be warned, our testing protocols are extremely thorough. We will document every failure of your biological systems." Dr. Walsh, who had been quietly observing from his seat, finally spoke up. "And you'll document every success too, correct? In the name of scientific accuracy." Vexterra's scales flashed with patterns that the humans had learned meant confidence, maybe even arrogance. "Of course. Though I doubt we'll find many of those." The meeting ended with both sides agreeing to begin the tests the next morning. As the Zaxthrixie filed out of the conference room, Amanda approached Lisa. "That was bold," Amanda said. "Are you sure our volunteers can handle their testing protocols?" Lisa smiled. "You've seen the preliminary volunteer list, right?" Amanda checked her tablet and her eyes widened. The list included seasoned Marines, Olympic athletes who had been part of the colonial expedition, and several individuals who had survived extreme conditions on frontier worlds. "They think we're soft because we need sleep," Lisa continued. "They don't understand that we dream of the stars even while resting. They think we're weak because we feel pain, not realizing that pain has taught us how to endure. They look at our need to eat frequently as a disadvantage, never considering that our ability to digest almost anything has helped us survive where other species couldn't." Dr. Walsh joined them, his face showing both concern and determination. "Tomorrow, we start showing them what human biology can really do. We've arranged for the tests to begin with basic endurance measurements." John Baker from the Marine Unit volunteered to go first. Amanda remembered John, a quiet, sturdy man who had once survived 3 weeks alone on an Arctic planet when his survey ship crashed. If anyone could show the Zaxthrixie what humans were capable of, it would be him. As they left the conference room, Amanda couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. The Zaxthrixie were about to learn that underestimating humans wasn't just a diplomatic mistake. It was a scientific one. The testing chamber gleamed under bright lights as John Baker stepped onto the treadmill. The Marine's calm expression didn't change as the Zaxthrixie medical team attached their monitoring devices to his chest and arms. Amanda Cole watched from the observation room, along with Lisa Martinez and Dr. Walsh. Beginning Endurance Test Phase 1, Vexterra announced, its scales showing patterns of scientific curiosity. We will start with basic cardiovascular assessment. The treadmill began to move. John started walking, then jogging, his steady pace matching the machine's increasing speed. The Zaxthrixie observers clicked to each other as they monitored their instruments. Interesting, one of them said. The subject's internal temperature is rising, yet he continues to function. Another alien adjusted its scanning device. Such an inefficient cooling system. The amount of water loss through their sweat glands is remarkable. John had been running for 30 minutes when Vexterra increased the incline. Sweat gleamed on his skin, but his breathing remained controlled. The Marine's eyes stayed focused straight ahead, his rhythm unchanged. How long can your species maintain this level of activity? Vexterra asked, its scales showing patterns of mild surprise. Lisa smiled. Why don't you find out? An hour passed. Then 2. John kept running. The Zaxthrixie scales began shifting to colors Amanda hadn't seen before, patterns that suggested confusion and disbelief. The subject's endurance exceeds our predicted models, one of the alien doctors noted, and the cellular damage from such extended exertion is minimal. Dr. Walsh stepped closer to the observation window. That's because humans evolved as persistence hunters. We can run for hours, tracking prey until it collapses from exhaustion. 3 hours into the test, John finally spoke. Mind if I have some water? I could keep going, but hydration helps. The Zaxthrixie medical team hurriedly collected samples of his sweat and monitored his vital signs as he took a water break. Their scales flickered rapidly with patterns of intense discussion. Your cooling system, while wasteful, appears to be more effective than we initially calculated, Vexterra admitted. But surely such extended physical activity must require significant recovery time. John wiped his face with a towel. Ready to go again whenever you are. The next set of tests focused on strength and recovery. The Zaxthrixie designed exercises meant to push human muscles to their limits. They seemed particularly interested in how quickly human tissue could repair itself after strain. Your muscle fibers actually become stronger after being damaged, one of the alien researchers noted with surprise. It defies conventional biological efficiency. Lisa stepped forward. That's the key you're missing. Human biology isn't about conventional efficiency. It's about adaptation. Every stress we survive makes us stronger. The final test of the day measured reaction times. The Zaxthrixie were certain their superior nervous systems would prove humans inferior in this area. John stood in the center of the room as holographic targets appeared randomly around him. His responses were faster than their equipment had been calibrated to measure. The Marine moved with fluid grace, hitting targets before the aliens could even record the previous motion. Impossible, Vexterra said, its scales now showing patterns of deep purple confusion. Your nervous system should be too primitive for such rapid responses. Amanda noticed how the other Zaxthrixie were frantically adjusting their instruments, checking and rechecking their data. Their previous confidence had given way to scientific uncertainty. Perhaps, Dr. Walsh suggested gently, it's time to reevaluate your definition of primitive. As John left the testing chamber, Amanda saw him hide a small smile. It had been just 1 day of tests, just one human showing what they could do. And already the Zaxthrixie's carefully constructed theories about human biological inferiority were beginning to crumble. Tomorrow would bring more volunteers and more tests. Amanda couldn't wait to see how the aliens would react when they discovered this was just the beginning of what humans could do. The second day of testing brought new challenges and new volunteers. Mary Thompson and Kevin Morris stood in the environmental chamber, their breath visible in the rapidly cooling air. The Zaxthrixie had decided to test human adaptability to extreme conditions. Dropping chamber temperature to 0 degrees Celsius, Vexterra announced. Its scales showed patterns of anticipation. Surely your warm-blooded physiology cannot handle such extremes for long. Amanda watched from the control room as frost began forming on the chamber walls. Mary and Kevin wore only light clothing, but neither showed signs of distress. Dr. Susan Clark monitored their vital signs carefully. Heart rates stable, Susan reported. Core temperature maintaining through natural processes. The Zax-Thrixie medical team clicked rapidly to each other as they reviewed the data. Their scales flickered with confusion when the temperature sensors showed -10 degrees Celsius, but the humans remained functional. "How are you feeling?" Amanda asked through the intercom. "Bit chilly," Kevin replied with a grin. "Reminds me of winter camping back in Minnesota." Mary jumped in place a few times. "The movement helps. We could do this for hours if needed." Vexterra's scales shifted to a deep blue of frustration. "Let us try heat instead." The chamber temperature began rising rapidly. Sweat appeared on the human's skin as the display showed 40 degrees Celsius. The Zax-Thrixie waited for signs of distress, but Mary and Kevin simply continued their light exercises. "Remarkable," one of the alien doctors said. "Their cooling system is actually becoming more efficient as the temperature rises." Susan nodded. "Human sweat glands adapt to repeated heat exposure. The more we experience heat, the better we handle it." The next test focused on rapid temperature changes. The Zax-Thrixie were certain that quick shifts between hot and cold would overwhelm human homeostasis. They were wrong. Their bodies are compensating faster than our models predicted, Vexterra admitted, its scales showing patterns of scientific confusion. Every stress we apply seems to make them more resilient, not less. After the temperature trials, the Zax-Thrixie moved on to testing human reactions to various atmospheric pressures. Mary and Kevin handled the changes with surprising ease, their bodies adapting to each new condition. "We've evolved to handle many different environments," Susan explained to the increasingly puzzled aliens. "Our ancestors survived ice ages and tropical heat, high mountains, and deep valleys. That adaptability is built into our biology." The most surprising results came during the oxygen variation tests. The Zax-Thrixie reduced the oxygen content in the chamber, expecting the humans to quickly show signs of hypoxia. Instead, their bodies automatically adjusted their breathing and heart rates to compensate. Their blood cells are actually increasing their oxygen-carrying capacity, one of the alien researchers reported with astonishment. "The longer we expose them to low oxygen, the better they adapt to it." Amanda noticed how the Zax-Thrixie's scientific arrogance had given way to genuine curiosity. Their scales now showed patterns of deep interest as they documented each unexpected human response. "We should test their recovery times," Vexterra suggested. "Surely such biological stress must require significant rest periods." But when Mary and Kevin left the chamber, their vital signs returned to normal within minutes. They seemed energized rather than exhausted, their bodies already adapting to the challenges they'd faced. "Would you like to try more tests?" Mary asked, surprising the aliens with her enthusiasm. Vexterra's scales rippled with patterns that Amanda now recognized as scientific excitement. "You would volunteer for additional trials after all this stress?" Kevin laughed. "This is what humans do. We push our limits, then push them further. Each challenge makes us stronger." As the day ended, Amanda overheard the Zax-Thrixie medical team discussing the need to completely revise their understanding of biological adaptability. Their carefully documented assumptions about human limitations had been proven wrong again and again. And tomorrow would bring even more surprises. Everything changed on the third day of testing. Richard Palmer sat calmly in the medical bay as the Zax-Thrixie prepared their instruments for the healing trials. Amanda Cole noticed how the alien scales had changed from their initial dismissive patterns to shows of intense scientific focus. "This test will measure cellular regeneration rates," Vexterra explained, holding up a small device. "We will create a minor surface wound and monitor the healing process." Dr. Walsh supervised carefully as the device created a small cut on Richard's arm. The wound was shallow, carefully controlled, and completely sterile. Richard didn't even flinch. "Beginning cellular monitoring," one of the alien doctors announced. The medical bay filled with soft humming as their advanced scanning equipment activated. At first, everything seemed normal. The Zaxthrixi recorded their baseline readings, their scales showing the usual patterns of scientific observation. Then something changed. "That's impossible," Vexterra said suddenly, its scales flashing bright patterns of alarm. "Check the equipment calibration." Amanda stepped closer. "What's wrong?" The alien medical team rushed to verify their readings, all 4 arms of each researcher moving quickly over their instruments. Their scales now showed patterns that Amanda had never seen before, combinations of colors that seemed to indicate both excitement and disbelief. "The human cellular regeneration rate," one of them explained. "It's accelerating. The healing process is actually getting faster as it progresses." Dr. Walsh nodded calmly. "That's normal for us. Our healing response includes inflammation that triggers faster tissue repair." "But that defies all known biological models," Vexterra insisted. Its scales were now shifting through colors so quickly they seemed to blur. "Healing should follow a steady, predictable pattern. It shouldn't improve itself during the process." Richard spoke up for the first time. "Sounds like you folks haven't been in many fights. Every injury teaches our bodies how to heal better next time." The Zaxthrixi gathered around their main display screen, clicking rapidly to each other as they analyzed the data. Amanda could see the healing progression clearly. The wound was already showing signs of repair that the aliens claimed shouldn't be possible for hours. "Look at the cellular activity," one of the alien researchers said. "They're not just replacing damaged tissue, they're improving it. The new cells are more resilient than the original ones." Vexterra's scales settled into a deep purple of profound realization. This explains so much about their species. Every challenge, every injury, every stress. They don't just recover, they adapt. They get stronger. The medical bay became very quiet as the implications sank in. The Zaxthrixi had believed their own biology was superior because it prevented damage. But here was something entirely different. A biology that actually benefited from facing challenges. "We need to completely revise our understanding," Vexterra announced. "All our assumptions about biological efficiency were based on avoiding stress. We never considered that experiencing stress could be an advantage." Richard's wound had already formed a healthy scab, days ahead of the Zaxthrix's predicted healing timeline. The aliens carefully documented every stage of the process, their earlier arrogance replaced by genuine wonder. "Your entire species is like this," one of them asked. "You all have this healing capability." Amanda smiled. "This is just the beginning. Wait until you see how our immune systems learn from every infection, how our muscles grow stronger after every workout, how our minds adapt to new challenges." The Zaxthrixi medical team huddled together, their scales showing patterns that Amanda now recognized as excitement and curiosity. They were no longer dismissing human biology. They were racing to understand it. As Richard left the medical bay, Dr. Walsh turned to Amanda. "I think we just changed their entire understanding of what makes a species advanced." Amanda watched the aliens poring over their data, their earlier scorn completely forgotten in their excitement over this discovery. Sometimes, she thought, the most powerful victories came not from proving others wrong, but from showing them something wonderfully new. Word spread quickly through the Starweaver about the Zaxthrix's discovery. Amanda Cole found the ship's halls buzzing with excitement as she made her way to the emergency medical bay. There, she found Dr. Carol Wright working alongside 3 Zaxthrixi researchers, their scales glowing with intense focus. "You need to see this," Carol said as Amanda entered. She pointed to a display showing microscopic images of human cells. "The Zaxthrixi found something incredible about our stress responses." The alien researchers had their instruments trained on samples from various human volunteers. Their previous dismissive attitude had vanished completely, replaced by genuine scientific curiosity. We have documented 47 distinct cellular adaptation mechanisms that we never knew existed, Vexterra announced, its scales showing patterns of pure scientific joy. Your bodies don't just heal, they evolve on a cellular level. The main screen filled with data as the Zaxthrixi shared their findings. They had discovered that human cells could change their structure to better handle future stress. It wasn't just healing, it was improvement. Our entire medical council is in crisis, one of the alien researchers admitted, scales flickering with excitement. Everything we thought we knew about biological efficiency needs to be reconsidered. Carol pulled up more test results. They've been studying samples from our athletes, comparing them to regular crew members. The differences are fascinating. The images showed how human muscle cells changed after exercise, becoming more efficient at using energy. The Zaxthrixi had never seen anything like it. Their own biology focused on maintaining stability, not adapting to challenges. Your species thrives on stress, Vexterra said, its voice carrying new respect. Where we avoid damage, you embrace it and grow stronger. It's beautiful. Amanda watched as human and alien medical teams worked together, sharing knowledge and discovering new things about both species. The Zaxthrixi's advanced instruments revealed details about human biology that Earth's scientists had never been able to see. Look at this, Carol said, pointing to new data. Their scanning technology shows how our neural pathways actually multiply when we learn new skills. Our brains physically rebuild themselves to handle new challenges. The Zaxthrixi Medical Council had called an emergency session to update their biological classification system. Human adaptability didn't fit into any of their existing categories. They needed to create entirely new ones. We have been so focused on preventing stress that we never considered the advantages of adapting to it. Vexterra explained to a group of fascinated human doctors. Your species shows us a completely different path of evolution. As the day progressed, more discoveries emerged. The Zaxthrixi found that human bones became stronger in response to repeated impact. They documented how human skin could become more resistant to temperature changes through exposure. Each finding added to their growing appreciation of human biology. We must share this knowledge with our home world, one of the alien researchers said, its scales showing patterns of urgency. This could revolutionize our understanding of medical treatment. Carol stepped forward with an idea. Why don't we establish a joint research institute? We could combine your advanced technology with our understanding of adaptive biology. The Zaxthrixi scales lit up with enthusiasm. The idea of a collaborative research center had never occurred to them before their discoveries about human biology. Now it seemed like the obvious next step. Amanda smiled as she watched the teams working together. The aliens who had arrived barely a week ago believing humans were primitive now wanted to learn everything they could about human biology. It was more than just a scientific victory. It was the beginning of a true partnership. Sometimes, Carol said quietly to Amanda, the best way to prove yourself is to let others discover your worth on their own. 6 months after the initial tests aboard the Starweaver, Amanda Cole stood in the grand opening ceremony of the Human Zaxthrixi Medical Research Institute. The massive facility, built in neutral space between Earth and the Zaxthrixi homeworld, sparkled with new equipment and buzzed with excitement. Dr. Paul Harrison, the newly appointed human director of the institute, stepped up to the podium. Behind him, the Zaxthrixi Medical Council scales glowed with patterns of celebration and anticipation. When we first met the Zaxthrixi, Paul began, they thought human biology was primitive. Now we stand together at the beginning of the greatest joint medical research project in known space. Vexterra, now serving as the Zaxthrixi co-director, moved forward to join him. Its scales showed the complex patterns that humans had learned meant deep respect and friendship. Our people were wrong, Vexterra announced through the translator. We thought we knew everything about biological efficiency. Humans taught us that there are many paths to advancement. Sometimes, the ability to adapt is more valuable than the ability to resist. Amanda watched from her new position as Chief of Human-Alien Medical Relations. The testing room where it all began had been recreated in the Institute as a historical exhibit. The simple treadmill where John Baker had first surprised the aliens stood next to the environmental chamber where Mary and Kevin had demonstrated human adaptability. Our first breakthrough came from studying human healing, Vex Terra continued. But that was just the beginning. In 6 months, we've documented over 200 unique advantages of human biology. Each discovery opens new paths for medical advancement. The Institute's main research floor displayed the results of their combined knowledge. Zach's Frixie technology, merged with human biological understanding, had already produced remarkable advances. They had developed new treatments that helped other species heal faster by copying human cellular adaptation. The human ability to grow stronger through stress has revolutionized our approach to medical treatment, one of the alien researchers explained to the gathered crowd. We no longer just heal injuries, we help bodies learn from them. Carol Wright, now leading the cellular research department, stepped forward to demonstrate their latest discovery. On the large screen behind her, images showed how human-inspired treatments had helped a Zach's Frixie patient recover from a previously untreatable condition. By understanding how human cells adapt to stress, Carol explained, we've learned to help other species develop similar abilities. It's not just about healing anymore. It's about helping bodies become more resilient. Amanda remembered the first day when the Zach's Frixie had mocked human biology. Now, medical ships from across known space arrive daily, seeking to learn from the Institute's research. The aliens who had once dismissed humans as primitive now sent their best scientists to study human adaptation. This institute represents more than just medical advancement, Paul continued. It shows what we can achieve when we put aside our assumptions and learn from each other. Every species has something to teach us, if we're willing to learn. Vex Terra's scales rippled with patterns of agreement. Humans taught us that true advancement comes not from avoiding challenges, but from learning to overcome them. This lesson has changed more than just our medical science. It has changed our entire society's understanding of growth and progress. As the ceremony concluded, Amanda walked through the Institute's halls. Teams of human and Zach's Frixie researchers worked side by side, their different approaches to science combining to create something entirely new. The aliens' advanced technology and the humans' adaptable biology had proved to be a powerful combination. Sometimes the best discoveries come from being proven wrong. Vex Terra said to Amanda as they watched the teams at work, your species has taught us that there is strength in adaptation, wisdom in change, and beauty in resilience. Outside the Institute's windows, ships from dozens of species orbited, waiting to share in the knowledge born from that first simple challenge. What had started as a contest had become a collaboration, opening new horizons for medical science across the galaxy.